Are you ready for a snack break? Afternoon Snack is the cure-all to your dreaded afternoon slump. Join me, LK, an avid snacker and armchair history and culture buff, uniquely qualified to provide you with that brief distraction you didn't know you needed. Honestly, is snacking even good for you anymore? I'm not sure, but you're not in the market for more than a little treat anyway. Boss just slacked you 8 times? No worries. This will only take a few. So stop slacking and let's get snacking. What is up, my friends, my snackers out there? I want to welcome you to this week's episode of Afternoon Snack. We are not doing a live this week because it is the week of Thanksgiving, and we are going to jump right in with today's topic. As I promised, it's going to be pretty meaty and maybe even a little philosophical, so hopefully it'll fill your tummy right up and get you through until dinner. So, I wanted to dive in this week with things I'm grateful for, and one of them is lessons in entrepreneurship. And so today's episode is really going to focus on the paradox in entrepreneurship of always being extremely hyper focused with blinders on your goal and ignoring what your competition is doing, while simultaneously always having to know every move that your competition is making in order to stay competitive. So I'll start with an anecdote that I think illustrates this pretty well. And as I'm going to be running a 4-miler with my brother on Thanksgiving morning, which is our annual turkey trot, I was thinking a little bit about running metaphors when I was putting this episode together. And the relevant anecdote from my relatively unsuccessful running career is, I was running a 5K earlier this year, and I was running down the road, and I felt like I was really pacing and outpacing people. I had people up in front of me that I was taking down one by one, and there at the very last minute, I was almost to the finish line, and I decided to look back to see who was behind me, and guess what? It tripped me up so much that the person who was behind me ended up overtaking me and beating me to the finish line. So not to say I was a little frustrated with myself, but it did make me start thinking that there is a necessity in business to simultaneously just ignore your competition and closely watch your competitors. Now, on the one hand, totally ignoring your competition is really another way of saying that we're focusing on our vision, that we're solo minded. Because how can you really foster creativity, originality, and innovation, in business or in any environment, especially any creative environment, if you're always in your rearview mirror? Now, I remember my high school driving instructor telling me, you got to spend 80% of your time with your eye on the guy in front of you and the other 20% in your mirrors, except when you're changing lanes. And I kind of apply the same rule of thumb, like this 80-20 to, this business tension between closely watching everything that your competition does and simultaneously fostering and driving forward without any care in the world, ostensibly any care in the world to what they're doing. That tension to me is really kind of exemplified in one of my favorite music quotes of all time, which I know I bring up all the time, and how it really encapsulates, I think, how looking at your competitors constantly can stifle creativity. This is Grace Jones's song. It's called "This Is," and what she says in this song is that, this is depression. It comes when you're blocking, and I think then she says, "This is expression. It comes when you're rocking." And that to me, reminds me of that sense of, you're really able to do and create and forge forward when you're traveling down the road with nothing in your way and no concerns about what's happening behind you. But at the same time, that tension is there, because the risks of ignoring your competition are, that's a death knell for any business, is to completely, ignore what your competition is doing and also seeing where they're innovating to understand the market. And I think always of Vine. Who else remembers Vine? I mean, it was that really super fun short form video hosting service where users could share 6-second looping videos of anything they wanted. And this is so beloved as an app. I still look back on vines from the past that were hysterical. They're still in the kind of iconic vernacular of the internet. It really drove GIF and short video culture that would ultimately, end up being TikTok's empire to own, with, Vine being one of those Ozymandias who are still, in hindsight. And they lost because as new competitors emerged, they really refused to evolve beyond that like 6-second looping format. And combine that with, so no evolution, with a, under thought out strategy for monetization, and creating opportunities for monetization, really caused users to leave for other apps. And Twitter, which owns Vine, they ended up shutting it down in 2017, even though it was, something that we all so loved and had so much fun with, and really taught us how to use short form video on social, laying the groundwork for X and TikTok and other platforms. But the same thing, this is what happened, right? Like to Borders, Blockbuster, Kodak, other companies that deliver entertainment or content services that, are now that didn't look forward to what the market was doing. And I know it's a textbook example, but I do think of Kodak and how the company had plans for a digital camera, but it never really moved to realize the potential of digital because they were too worried that profits from digital might cut into their sales of their actual film. And how how much more wrong could they have possibly been there, with all due respect to Kodak. But I mean, as usual, I love a sports metaphor when we talk about these business tensions, and I've really enjoyed talking through it with you today. I think, comparing business to a race is always a little bit helpful for me because it defines like who ultimately finishes first. And I think the rule of thumb that I've learned from all of this is, don't start looking back until you're pretty sure that no one is close behind you, or else you're going to lose the turkey trot this year because you were paying too much attention to your competition. So with that, gobble gobble. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Snack. I know it was a little bit of a different conversation, but if you liked the philosophical bent and it was meaty enough for you, drop a comment, please. Let me know what you thought of this. This podcast is in beta, and I am so thankful to all of you for participating and showing up. Thanks for supporting me. Have a great holiday. Gobble gobble.